In this video, we're going to touch on EC2 storage types a little bit more. Now, we've already been over all of these in a little bit of detail, but I'd like to spend a little bit more time on these. Now, once again, EBS, or Elastic Block Store, are persistent storage volumes that are attached to an EC2 instance whenever you create an EC2. But there are a couple of types that you should be aware of. The first kind of EBS volume is general purpose solid state. So with this volume, you can expect a base performance of 3 IOPS per gigabyte with the ability to burst to up to 3,000 IOPS for extended periods of time. So general purpose volumes are ideal for a broad range of use cases like boot volumes, small to medium-sized databases, and development and test environments. With provisioned IOPS solid state volumes, you can provision a specific level of I/O performance. Provisioned IOPS volumes support up to 32,000 IOPS and 500 megabits of throughput. This allows you to predictably scale to tens of thousands of IOPS per EC2 instance. Throughput optimized hard disk volumes provide low-cost magnetic storage that define performance in terms of throughput rather than IOPS. With throughput of up to 500 megabits per second, this volume type is a good fit for large sequential workloads such as Amazon EMR, ETL, data warehouses, and log processing. And finally, there's cold hard disk volumes, which provide low-cost magnetic storage that define performance in terms of throughput as well. These have throughput of up to 250 megabits per second. And it's a good fit for large sequential cold data workloads. If you require infrequent access to your data and are looking to save costs, then cold hard disks might be what you're looking for. Now let's see what that looks like in the dashboard. So at the top of the AWS dashboard, let's click on Services and then EC2. And then on the left side of the page under Elastic Block Store, let's click Volumes again. And if you'll recall, when we created our first EC2 instance, it was attached to an EBS with the same name, my first instance. So let's use this one as an example. And we're looking for two specific pieces of information here. Under volume type, we have GP2, which once again stands for general purpose solid state. And then for IOPS, we have 100 IOPS per gigabyte. For the next storage type, we have EC2 Instance Store. And we've already been over this just a little bit, but to touch on it again, an Instance Store is ephemeral, temporary block-level storage for your instance. This storage is located on disks that are physically attached to the host computer. Instance Store is ideal for temporary storage of information that changes frequently, such as buffers, caches, scratch data, and other temporary content, or for data that is replicated across a fleet of instances, such as a load-balanced pool of web servers. And once again, one of the main differences between EBS and EC2 Instance Store is that EBS is persistent storage and Instance Store is not. So if you stop or terminate an EC2 instance, any information on the Instance Store will be lost. EFS, or Elastic File System, is a file system with storage capacity that is elastic, and that grows and shrinks automatically as you add and remove files so that your applications have the storage they need and not any more than that. Let's jump over to the AWS dashboard to see a little bit more about how that works. So back in the AWS dashboard, let's click on Services at the top, and then type in EFS, and select the EFS option. And let's click Create File System to go to the first page of the EFS creation process. So the first option here is VPC, and this dropdown is going to contain a list of any VPCs that are deployed to your region. So once again, all we have right now is the default VPC, so let's just leave that where it is. Next is mount targets, which refer to the availability zones that you want this EFS to be active in. So what EFS recommends is that you place one mount target for each availability zone in that region, and that's actually how it has it set by default, so we don't have to do anything here. Let's just click Next Step. The next option is tags. So similarly to what we did for the EC2 instance, we have the option of setting metadata in the form of tags for EFS volumes as well. Let's go ahead and do that now. We'll select my first EFS for this tag. And similarly to EBS, you have two different performance modes that you can choose for EFS here. General purpose is what you'll find yourself using most of the time, but if you are going to have tens, hundreds, or thousands of EC2 instances accessing this file system, then you do have a max I/O option as well. We're going to leave it at general purpose for now. And the exact numbers for bursting versus provisioned throughput node is beyond the scope of this video, but just know that similarly to EBS, you have the option of choosing between bursting, which has a lower baseline but a burstable ability, and provision, which allows you to provision a higher baseline. We're going to leave it at bursting for now. And finally, we won't talk too much about Kms keys, but just know that they're keys you can use to encrypt data at rest in your AWS account, and you have the option of doing that now. If you wanted to enable the encryption of your data, then you would just need to select a KMS key, and enable encryption. But we're going to leave it decrypted for now as well, and let's hit next step. This is just a summary page, so we're just going to hit create file system. And this will take just a moment, so I'm going to place this video on a brief pause. Alright, so the EFS has been provisioned and all of my mount targets are available, so let's practice mounting this on the EC2 instance that we created in a previous video. First thing I'm going to do here is switch back to my terminal, and I'm going to enter the command I used earlier to SSH back into this instance. And now that I'm in, let's switch back, and on the EFS summary page, you'll see a link that says Amazon EC2 Mount Instructions. And this is going to have just a couple of different steps. So depending on the operating system that you used to create your EC2, you're going to run one of these commands. And if you recall, I used Amazon Linux EC2, so I'm going to choose this command here, and I'm going to run that on my instance. Now that that's done, let's scroll down just a little bit. And then what this boils down to is just creating the directory that you want to mount the EFS on, and then choosing one of a couple of options to actually mount the file system. Now I am going to just make a directory called EFS, so I'll switch back here, and in my home directory I'll create that EFS directory, and then I'm going to use the NFS client. Copy that in, and hit enter. And that's not working, so let's see what the issue might be. Let's go back to our EFS summary page, and there you go, that sticks out. So the security group that this EFS is using is the default security group, but if you'll recall, we chose a different security group for our EC2. So let's go back to the EC2 dashboard and click Running Instances, and then let's choose the instance that we created earlier. Now you'll notice down in the information section that it only has one security group, and that's Launch Wizard 2. So with my first instance chosen, let's click Actions and Networking, and then change security groups. And then let's add the default security group that the EFS is also in, and assign security group. And you'll notice what that does is, let's check out View Inbound Rules now. So one of the things that the default security group allows is inbound traffic from any other resource in the same security group. And you'll see that here. Any port, any protocol from the source of that security group. And now that that's working, we should have a lot more luck in our terminal. So let's try the same command. And because we made that change in the security group, the mount instruction went through just fine this time. So let's go into that directory. Of course, we're expecting an empty EFS right now, but just to show you that EFS is persistent storage that's independent from EC2 instances, let's touch a quick file here and check it out. And let's hop out of this directory and unmount it. Oopsie. Alright, so because we've unmounted the EFS, we ls in there, and of course we don't see anything. So let's remount it. And there you go, the file is back because we've remounted the EFS onto our EC2 instance. And finally, our last storage type for EC2 is S3, or Simple Storage Service. Now we've been over this just a little bit in previous videos, and we are going to cover this in much greater detail in a larger module later on in the course, so we're going to leave this alone for now. Just know that EC2 can use the AWS API to interact with S3 by uploading and downloading objects to and from it. This concludes our module on storage types that you can use with EC2, so if all of that makes sense, feel free to move on.